from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Being in Vancouver, obviously, we don't have an NFL team, although I feel like one of the Canadian cities should, either us or Toronto, but that's a whole other can of worms. But being from here, Pacific Northwest, there are a lot of Seahawks fans around here. And fair enough, they're only a couple of hours away. You can go see the games. But the issue with the Seahawks for me has always been A, I'm not a Seahawks fan, and B, for the last couple of years, especially since I've started this podcast, they've really had no sense of direction. And having no sense of direction means a lot less storylines to talk about because they're kind of in this middle stage of we don't want to be bad, but we're definitely not good. We don't want to rebuild, but we kind of like they really don't have a vision of how I can see them becoming actual contenders slash high end playoff team in the next couple of years. I don't know what direction they're going in, and I don't think they do either. Objectively, it was an insane decision, in my opinion, to let go of Geno Smith for a third round pick and then replace him with Sam Darnold, who you gave $30 million to. Now, Geno, for all of his faults and all of the baggage that comes with the fact that he was a longtime NFL bust, and you could say at this point that he only had a couple of good years. I think that's a ridiculous argument. And I understand that he's not Patrick Mahomes, but Geno Smith last year, I'm going to get into this a bit more in depth in a second, but playing behind a bottom 3 O line in the NFL last year put up top 5 quarterback statistics. And he fought his ass off every single game, even when he didn't have a run game whatsoever to lean on, again, because of that terrible offensive line. Sam Darnold, we have only seen succeed in the most preeminent situation you could imagine for a quarterback. Having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the outside is pretty impressive. TJ Hawkinson is an awesome tight end. Christian Darrisaw, I know he went down towards the end of the year, but he's one of the best left tackles in the world. Their offensive line was awesome. Kevin O'Connell is looked at by everyone as one of the best offensive play callers and scheme designers that there is. That's the only time we've seen Sam Darnold be even above average. And they bring him into the situation where he will have nowhere near the weaponry that he had in Minnesota, and they expect him to put up numbers probably similar to Geno Smith. And I think that's an insane expectation, especially when you let DK Metcalf go for a second round pick. Now, I understand that he was a Pete Carroll guy and this new regime weren't that high on him because he can run a little hot and he can have some bad body language, blah, blah, blah. When you're bringing in Sam Darnold, who, again, I will reiterate, has only succeeded with Justin Jefferson, you need every weapon that you can to make sure that that $30 million a year signing doesn't fall flat on its face. So with Metcalf gone and Lockett gone, the offense is going to be heavily reliant on Jackson Smith and Jigba. Cooper Kupp is 32 years old, coming off yet another knee surgery. I actually think Cooper Kupp is going to be pretty good. This isn't a white guy thing, but he hasn't really won one-on-one matchups with speed for a lot of his career. He's very much so a slot kind of technician, so I actually think he'll be okay. But like I said, heavily reliant on Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I don't know is that good. Now, I think he's a top 30 receiver. And you're going to hear that and think, what? That is so disrespectful. Only top 30. This guy is clearly top whatever. Until you actually start making the list. And then you're like, oh, wait, is he better than Nico Collins? The answer is no. Is he better than Garrett Wilson? The answer is no. And you start going down the list of receivers, you're like, oh, wait, he is kind of around that 30 to 25, 23 kind of range of receivers. And you're expecting him to go out and be as dominant as a guy who's in the top tier, like a Jamar Chase, because you don't have any weapons around him to distract the coverage. All eyes are going to be on JSN at all times. And even last year, when the eyes weren't on JSN at all times, he had an unbelievable finish to the season, but majority or a lot of the attention had to be put on DK Metcalf. He's not there anymore. So JSN is going to get all of the number one matchups. And outside of those two, JSN and Cooper Kupp, who are their receiving options? Like they've got a decent tight end. Like, am I missing anything here? I don't understand what their offensive philosophy is with their new OC, Clint Kubiak. They haven't really established a running game whatsoever, despite the fact that I like two of their running backs. I think Kenneth Walker is awesome. I think he's super explosive, and I think as an outside gap scheme running back, he can be extremely effective. And I think Charbonnet can be the thunder to his lightning in a way because he's very good at running through gaps, especially between that guard and center spot. But it's hard to run the ball when there's nowhere to run it. This offensive line is a bottom 5 unit in the NFL. Last year, it was a bottom 2 unit in the NFL. Now, Charles Cross is good. He's one of the few bright spots from last year, but he's missed almost all of training camp with finger surgery. So, how sharp is he going to be early in the season? I don't know. They tried to address the offensive line in the draft. They drafted Gray Zabel, 18th overall, who I actually think is going to be a very good player out of North Dakota. I think North Dakota State. But again, considering how bad the offensive line was last year and how bad the run game was last year and the additions that they've made, I think they've actually gotten worse in the weapons department, probably slightly better in the offensive line department. So when you take both of those, you kind of reach its water level. Geno was spectacular last year under these adverse circumstances. And what we've seen from Sam Darnold is when everything is perfect, he can throw some darts and make some unbelievable passes. But last year, when the stakes got high against Detroit for that 1 seed game in week 18, he fell flat on his face. He played awful. He was terrible all game. In the playoffs against the Rams, he was terrible. When everything isn't ideal, Sam Darnold has proven that he's just not an elevator. And Geno proved he was exactly that. He almost got Seattle to the playoffs last year with the second worst offensive line in the league. I can't get over that. Do you realize how important offensive line play is in the NFL? I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit of an offensive line rant here, but it's not sexy, and we never talk about it in this part of the season where training camp is a thing. We're always talking about weapons and how and our fantasy football rosters. Offense comes down to your offensive line. Establishing the line of scrimmage, giving your running backs holes, giving your quarterback time to process information. All of it starts and ends with those 5 guys up front. And Seattle's was the second worst last year, and they almost made the bloody playoffs. And I understand that their defense is good, and I'll get into that in a second. But when your core of your offense is that bad, you need your quarterback to elevate. And that's exactly what Geno Smith did. And they got rid of him for Sam Darnold, who just hasn't proven that he can do that. Now, things are not all, gray clouds in Seattle, although they usually are. It rains a lot up here, but regardless, the bright spots, obviously, they're secondary. They have one of the better secondaries in the NFL, definitely a top 10 unit. They have probably 2 number ones on a lot of teams. I think Reek Woolen is awesome. I'm a big Devon Witherspoon fan. Kobe Bryant has flashed a bunch. He's made some good plays. Julian Love, I think, is cool. And I think he's a good football player. And they spent another second rounder on Nick Amenwari. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but I think he's shown a lot of flashes in camp. At least that's what I've been reading. He can kind of be that strong safety / nickel guy, kind of a rover on defense. But with a secondary and with a ball hawk secondary like Seattle has, the way to complement that is with a pass rush. So quarterbacks have to make quick decisions and hopefully turn the ball over. And I just don't know if Seattle has the pass rush to be able to take advantage of that secondary to the extent that they will need to be a good team this year. They signed DeMarcus Lawrence, which, I mean, cool. I don't know how much he has left in the tank yet at 33 years old, coming off a foot injury. I think Leonard Williams is obviously awesome on the interior. He's their pass rush bright spot. He's awesome. But I don't see anyone else consistently getting to the quarterback, which again, doesn't matter how good of a secondary you have. If the quarterback has 3 to 4 seconds to throw, someone is going to get open. That's just the way of the world in the NFL. Again, offensive line, defensive line, core pieces. That's what you build the entire foundation of your franchise off of. And I think in both trench spots, Seattle is thoroughly lacking. But they have good players in a variety of different spots. And that's what annoys me so much about the Seattle Seahawks is they're in the spot that I hate any franchise in any sport ever to be in. You're not good enough to make real playoff noise. There's really no one in their right mind would predict that the Seattle Seahawks are going to make it to the conference championship game. They're not good enough to make playoff noise, but they're not bad enough to get a great pick and really start an actual rebuild. They're just kind of in this middle phase where if they make the playoffs, that's a successful season. But when they get to the playoffs, they're going to get mollywopped by whoever they play in the first round. So what are you actually setting out to do? It kind of goes back to an old narrative that not every team is trying to win the Super Bowl, which I think is dumb. I think the pursuit of greatness in sports is what makes sports so cool and so competitive. And the Seahawks have just decided we're okay being fine. We're okay, just being in that 7 to 9 win range. And that's really disappointing, especially considering how awesome Seahawks fans are, how awesome Seattle sports can be. And really, again, the talent on their roster is not anything to sneeze at. They've got really good players at really important positions. They just haven't filled out their roster to the point where they need to, and they refuse to rebuild to do it. And that has to be super frustrating for Seahawks fans. I'm not a Seahawks fan, but it's super frustrating for me because I like to see them do well as the local team around this area. Please let me know what you guys think the Seahawks are going to do this year. Do they have a long-term plan that I'm somehow missing? What do you guys think Sam Darnold is going to do in his first year there? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm small enough as to where I can read all comments and love doing so. So please drop some down there. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe if you really enjoyed Spit Sports Show. Just hit over 400 subscribers. Big things happening on this channel. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Peace out. Love you guys.